Technical issues shake plane. Pilot tells passengers to pray. AirAsia X passengers headed to Kuala Lumpur from Perth, Australia on Sunday were subjected to a rumbling cabin that just wouldn't let up for almost 2 hours. The flight took off just before 7 a.m. on June 25th, but after about an hour of smooth sailing, many of the 359 passengers say they heard a loud bang that caused the plane to shake like a washing machine. The technical difficulties unrelenting, the pilot decided to turn the plane around. On 2 separate occasions during the turbulent ride back to Earth, he advised everyone on board to pray. 2 minutes prior to touching ground, the pilot then told them to hold the braced seating position in case of a bumpy landing. Though a nightmarish experience, passengers say the landing was smooth. The steady pilot received a thunderous applause and shook hands with each person as they deboarded the plane. The airline released a statement saying the shakiness was the result of a technical issue related to the engine.
Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews.
If you have a fear of flying, now would be the time to deploy that parachute.
AirAsia X flight from Sydney to Kuala Lumpur makes emergency landing in Melbourne. According to an AirAsia X spokesperson, the AirAsia X flight had to make the emergency landing as a precaution on Tuesday after an equipment malfunction. AirAsia X flight XAX 223 from Sydney to Kuala Lumpur took off from Sydney at around noon on Tuesday. Shortly after takeoff, the pilots encountered problems with the Airbus A330-300's navigational equipment and map display. The plane turned around and headed south towards Melbourne. The plane was unsuccessful at its first landing attempt, though, and circled Melbourne before making another attempt. The plane landed without any other incidents at Melbourne's Tullamarine Airport at 2 p.m. local time. AirAsia X engineers fixed the plane 3 hours after landing in Melbourne, and the plane continued on its journey to Kuala Lumpur.
Singapore Airlines flight lands on runway and catches fire. During the early morning hours of June 27th, a Singapore Airlines flight to Milan found itself in a scary situation. Roughly 2 hours into the journey, the 222 passengers and 19 crew members on board the Boeing 777 were notified by the pilot of an engine oil warning message, which would force the plane to have to turn back to Singapore. As the pilot was making an emergency landing at Changi Airport, suddenly the plane's right engine burst into flames. Fire crews rushed to douse the fire as passengers could only watch from their seats, trapped on board. Many have been reported as saying they felt they were about to die. Luckily, within minutes, the fire was extinguished, with no injuries to report. Passengers safely disembarked from the plane and were put on a new flight to Italy a few hours later.
US Airways plane crashes after nose gear collapse. A US Airways plane bound for Florida had its nose gear collapse during takeoff at the Philadelphia International Airport on Thursday evening, forcing the pilot to make an emergency landing. Flight 1720, which had 149 people on board, was about to take off when one of the plane's front landing gear blew out. The aircraft crashed onto the runway and passengers were evacuated using emergency slides. 2 minor injuries were reported, but no one was seriously hurt in the accident.
Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews.
Brazilian passenger jet crash lands in Brasilia. The pilot of a small passenger jet was forced to crash land his plane at night when the aircraft's landing gear failed to open. The Avianca Airlines Foco 100 was en route to the Brazilian capital Brasilia with 49 passengers and 5 crew on board. During the approach, a hydraulic problem caused the plane's front landing gear to fail to deploy. The aircraft's captain calmly made an announcement and aborted the landing. The captain then circled the plane above the city to expend fuel and reduce the aircraft's weight. He then made an emergency landing, grounding the rear wheels normally, then lowering the plane's nose to the tarmac for a belly landing. No one on board was hurt. The crash landing closed one of the airport's 2 runways, delaying flights to Brazil's 4th largest airport.